oh Lord, lift me, oh Lord, lift me, oh Lord, oh Lord, I come to you, Lord.
Two. Go.
Welcome to the special online to
A lot of echo.
welcome to the special online to titled Global Donald Trump using my citizen biology or action. Today we shall examine selected extracts from the book, and we have amazing minds and professionals in the house who will also be sharing their thoughts and opinions on the book. Pleasure to have
Always a pleasure where the issue of leadership is subject. Always a pleasure.
Okay, so before we move over to what our professionals in the house say, let's start with you. What inspired this book? Why did you choose to write this book, and why did you decide to use something that comes as the case of the Amazon, a couple of other reasons that you could have.
Thank you very much, my friend. Basically, we need to understand that leadership is universal concept, and living in consciousness of my environment and what leadership is. Leadership is not supposed to be about, because when we're talking about resources to manage the then to whatever doing and coming to that, I began to see why is it that leadership is a challenge for Africa? And because I'm a Democrat, I'm concerned about the development of democracy within the context of Nigerian society. So I have to take a look at other democracies around the world. And America representing what they have. Today, the American independence, if somebody has done what you are struggling to do for 250 years, unbroken democratic governance, there hasn't been interception, like intervention, like Okoha, like we have had. I think this is our study. And because President Donald Trump at this particular time in history is the president of the United States of America. Now, life in duty, that is one issue. The issue is that the institution that is headed as a nation has provided the direction of democracy. So we needed to study that. And then I became interested in Donald Trump because he represents something that is quite astonishing, something that is commendable, something that is worthy of scholar, something that is worthy of interrogation. And how do I know? He came in the first time and we saw him fail an election. He lost the election, believing in democracy. He came back and won and returned. Now that is a lesson that we cannot be discontented because that is our struggle. Our struggle in Africa is the struggle to know how to bow to power, how to exist based on the norm and tenet of democracy. And if you think you deserve a return, you allow the people to bring you back to power, not using the instrument of office to sustain yourself. And those are the areas of study that I went through and I said, no, we have a lesson to learn.
Africa. And that was what inspired the book.
Thank you very much for that, sir. I was wondering when I heard the title of the book, I was like, oh, why did you choose Donald J. Trump? There have been other presidents in the United States of America, but your answer was actually very insightful.
Well, maybe I should clear this. There had been other presidents in the United States of America, but for the context of this book, Donald Trump is the most fitting person. We have another book in the pipeline written to motivate Africa and to look at the possibility of another return of the son of Africa to the White House. And that book is titled Black Man in the White House. It's an essay on the Obama years. But now we are talking about democracy. Leadership is not meant to be a threat to democracy. But in this part of the world, leadership seems to be the threat to democracy. If you look at things happening around Osun and some of the places where election is coming up, you can see the federal might, the way it's being played out on the politics of those places. And even the way it is playing out on the bigger picture that we are meant to face in 2027. So it's nothing sentimental. It is the facts of the study that has led us to taking a study on Donald Trump, and which led to the book, Global Leadership Code, and Donald J. Trump as a case study.
Thank you very much for that, sir. One last question for you before we bring up our guests for today. The dedication of the book it was written, the book was actually dedicated to every citizen in the world who is always on the receiving end of leadership, whether good or bad. So my question to you is, what are you hoping that this book achieves?
Well, I am hoping that this book will serve as a manual to inform citizens of what leadership is meant to be. In the context of my understanding and my advocacy, leadership is meant to be stewardship, that is, service to the people. So every leader must see themselves as a servant of the people, and it is equally important that the people get to know that leaders are actually their servants and not the other way around.
That's that's very powerful. That leaders are actually their servants, not the other way around. Well, in this part of the world, it's actually the other way around. But we'll come back to that. Moving on, I don't know if we have Mr. Wale Adekola in the house. Is he on air yet?
I am here. Can you hear me? I am here.
Oh, he is. Sir, you are muted. Can you please unmute your mic so that we can hear you, sir?
Yeah, I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm unmuted now.
Okay, yes. Dr. Adekola, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope we can hear me clearly.
Yes, sir, we can.
Awesome. Awesome. So I just wanted to say a very big congratulations to the author. This is a wonderful, wonderful privilege to say something about this great book. I believe this book is going to transform many, many institutions, agencies, and many organizations in Africa and beyond. So the opening paragraph of chapter 1 of this book immediately signals that this is not an ordinary leadership book. Because if you look at the claim of this chapter 1, we can realize that leadership is not a modern invention. And when I read that, I think it caught my attention. It did not originate, in political theory, corporate management, or democratic experimentation. Leadership, in its truest sense, is a divine concept, revealed, tested, refined, and transmitted through sacred history long before it found expression in secular institutions like we have today in the world. And we just heard about what the author said on Donald Trump's philosophy about democracy, about leadership. So let me quickly give a brief philosophical foundation about the concept of this book in the next 2-3 minutes. This paragraph in particular establishes the philosophical foundation of the entire book. So the implication is highly significant. What does that mean? Leadership is presented as originating from God, and that is huge. Human systems, in this view, are only expressions or reflections of principles that have existed from the beginning. That means everything that we see today, the principles, the practices, the purpose, and all the systems, the structures, even the democratic system, everything that came out of this divine existence from the beginning that we see in the world today, that everything existed from the beginning. And that framing alone set this book apart from the conventional leadership literature. So let me just share a few additional perspectives that emerge from this foundation that I just mentioned. Number one, I'm just going to mention 4 of them. Number one, leadership becomes less about position. The author mentioned that a few minutes ago, and more about alignment. If leadership is rooted in divine order, then authority is not merely granted by structures, but validated by alignment. What does that mean? Example, democratic system, focusing on the people, not the position, not what do I get from this, not lording it over the people. It's an alignment that transforms the nation or any society or any organization with higher principles such as justice, stewardship, and accountability. Number 2, leadership is repositioned as a moral responsibility. I love this about the book. Rather than a functional skill, it is not just about effectiveness or performance, but about fidelity to a standard that precedes human innovation. Number 3, it reframes failure in leadership. And that's very important because every failure is a feedback. So this book is an opportunity for us to receive a feedback. How can we do it better? When leadership is disconnected from its original source in the beginning, it does not simply become inefficient, it becomes distorted. So in that sense, many modern leadership challenges can be interpreted as misalignment rather than lack of technique. And lastly, number 4, finally, this book, the foundational philosophy, introduces continuity across history. It suggests that that what we see in ancient narratives, whether in governance, family systems, or national leadership, are not primitive forms of leadership, but foundational expressions of a timeless design. So, looking at everything I just said now, I believe this book is highly positioned, not just as a leadership guide, like the author mentioned, but as a return to original thinking about how leadership itself is defined and understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. That was a very, very insightful opinion on the book. You mentioned 4 lessons that we could take from the book, but I'll be talking on the 3rd one. You said that it reframes failure in leadership, that the book reframes failure in leadership. Do you mind speaking on that a bit? How do you think that we can apply that to our society, especially in Nigeria today? How does that help us?
Thank you very much. Great question. Let me repeat what I said, that it reframes failure in leadership. Now, when leadership is disconnected from its original source, that will be chaos. And that does not simply mean an ineffective system. It becomes distorted. There will be foundational chaos. And the moment we start experiencing foundational chaos, because there is no alignment, human thinking cannot reason like it was designed from the beginning, according to the book. So we have to understand that the moment we have a shift from the original thinking, the source of leadership, the way it was designed, the way it was built on stewardship, the way it was built on justice, the way it was built on accountability, the way it was built on service, the way it was built on value system. The moment we deviate from that, automatically it becomes a problem in the society and it compounds. And that's why when we start seeing all these effects, because they are all effects, every failure is an effect of a cause. And we have to go to the root cause to diagnose, to understand what exactly is this alert all about. I call it system alert. And I love the way put it, going back to the original thinking. So the moment we experience an alert, for example, corruption is an alert that something is wrong in leadership. Creation imposing something on people without understanding how people think and what people desire is an alert. A leader seeing him or herself as the one in charge, not taking care of the people that they are in charge of. You are not in charge. No. You are there to take care of the people, to help the people to become better. Because the moment the leader does not become better, everything cannot become better. So the challenge is that every failure is a feedback that we need to know that, okay, this is an effect, this is an alert, and it's a system alert. It's a system failure. So what do we need to do now to take it back? Example, every opportunity we have in correcting leadership failure must be looked into by first thinking about what exactly is the problem. Now, if I ask, most people know the problem. And the problem is A, B, C, D. We can describe them. However, how can we get to the root cause so that we can align and realign back to this original intention of God, the real original state where we're supposed to be? So it's not a modern invention. I love the way the book put it. It's not a modern invention. So the challenge is our interpretation, because everything in life is about meaning and interpretation. Human already misinterpreted God's intention completely. We have given different meanings, our own meaning. So we need to go back to the original meaning and then reinterpret the original meaning by understanding the original meaning so that we can realign again.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for that. Thank you.
I don't know if I can say something too. I want to please say a big thank you to Dr. Wale Adekunle. You actually have proven that you're an expert on the subject of leadership. And I just want to say that what you have done here is to make us understand that leadership primarily is a bridge between divinity and humanity. And that is where the word alignment comes in. So if a leader is not aligned with the purpose of God, there will be chaos, because there's no way you can serve the people based on your own thinking. There is an original thinking that battered the idea of lead, or rather the concept of leadership. Now, you may not agree with the Bible, but somehow the Bible aligns with some of the stories that we hear around, even from other holy books, Quran and the rest of them, the existence of a God behind the scene who created all that we can see. And coming back to the Bible, who told us the story of creation and why the idea was formed, the idea about creating the earth and creating a man and creating a garden for the man. The idea was, let us make man in our own image, who will take stewardship, of all the things that we are about to create. So that is where alignment comes in. A leader necessarily doesn't have to be religious or become a bigot, but there must be that understanding of the existence of God, and the alignment of the heart of that individual with the heart of God. Now, in giving an example of leadership that must be celebrated, even though there are areas of failure in the life of that said leadership, I'm talking about David. God said, is a man after my own heart, a man seeking what is the purpose of God and how do I go about it? When you look at the parallel in the book, I drew a parallel, a comparison between Donald Trump and, of course, Cyrus, the king, who was completely out of the religious order of the people that God will use him to save. I speak of, the positioning of this individual on a global scale, even at that time, and making global leaders. For example, speaking directly to Donald Trump of the fact that though he's the president of America, but he needs to understand that the influence of the United States of America transcends borders. And there's a need for him to know that he has a purpose in God to serve for the continent of Africa. And that was a brilliant one from a global leadership expert. Dr. Wale Adekunle, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wale Adekunle, and thank you for that, Dr. Olujakimi. Okay, so we have Dr. CJ in the house. He is a Nigerian-American physician who experienced the controversy surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic firsthand. So, Dr. CJ, please, how do you respond to the author's treatment of disruptive leadership?
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to at least speak on this nice and timely publication. Reading in chapter 2, one passage particularly captured my attention. As the author wrote, disruptive leadership often violates conventions, often offend elites, challenge established protocols, and polarize societies. This does not sanctify the excesses. It explains their function. To use Jehu, for example, was not sent to be admired. It was sent to be effective. Such leaders are rarely appreciated during their own times. More often, they are understood only in hindsight. End of quotation. What actually impressed me most is the author's objectivity in this. He never idolizes or demonizes Donald Trump. Instead, he actually lays the evidence before the reader and allows each person to reach their independent conclusion. His comparison of Jehu and Trump is thought-provoking. I know that not everybody listening is a Christian or probably know enough about Jehu, but the point is not that Trump is Jehu, far from it, because I know that there are quite a whole lot of volume of argument that can be made between the ways Jehu was a military man, Trump never served the military. Rather, it is that history often remembers disruptive performers differently from how they're perceived during their lifetime. Posterity frequently celebrates change agents long after controversy had faded. Another remarkable feature of the book is the author's direct appeal to Donald Trump in chapter 3. He writes, in quote, if Donald Trump strategically releases Africa and by extension empowers the Black race economically, diplomatically, and developmentally, he will have accomplished what few leaders in history have dared, altering the trajectory of an entire continent without colonizing it. That is actually a very bold and visionary call. Every African, both on the continent and in diaspora, should carefully reflect on this challenge. This chapter closes with another memorable statement, and I quote, Africa waits not for saviors, but for the space to rise. And history waits to see whether Donald Trump will merely pass through power or leave enduring fingerprints on the future of the continent. This end of quote. This is particularly very sobering in the sense that between the two quotes, one would think that maybe the author was thinking that Donald Trump was going to actually help Africa in any way to liberate Africa. However, what I read from this is that he understands that currently all the challenges Africa faces is external pressure and intentional blockade of ability to represent and speak for itself, and trying to disrupt the global institutions that are trying to handicap Africa. If Donald Trump can achieve that, will actually allow Africans to govern themselves and do much better and liberate mankind from poverty that Africa represents on the global stage. That, to me, is one of the defining messages of the book. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much. One of the quotes in the book that you read says that Africa waits not for saviors, but for the space to rise, and history waits to see whether Donald Trump will merely pass through power or leave enduring fingerprints on the future of a continent. I want to dwell on the first part of that quote. How do you think that applies, especially to our nation, Nigeria? Because speaking from experience, and from all the talk on social media lately, it feels like we're actually waiting for a savior as a country, or we're expecting that there's one man who would come up, who would rise up, and who would put an end to whatever it is that we're facing right now. So how do we deal with that ideology in the Nigerian citizen? Because citizens are quick to point out bad governance. We're quick to blame the leaders. We're quick to mention the things that are not working, even though one man is out to get his neighbor, even though the average citizen is not looking out for the good of its neighbor. The average Nigerian citizen is selfish, but still expects that a savior will arise. So how do we fix that thought process that, oh, okay, it's not just one man who is to arise, but all of us are collectively supposed to arise and for a better Nigeria?
Thank you for that question, because it's very important for people who are listening to understand that from this book, reading it through, you'll find out again that the answer to your question is already there. Nigeria leadership often inspires change in citizenship. Is from what leaders do that people copy. It's not difficult to actually arrest, because why the symptom you describe is prevalent in Nigeria is because of lack of leadership. There are ways to, when people see that when you put your hand in the fire, it burns, and they will stop putting their hand in the fire. Everybody knows that the police, the custom, the army abused their power in Nigeria. And most of these things started very slowly. And because the leaders did not address them, everybody, it became a commonplace, it becomes a symptom that it perverses society as a whole. So, in effect, leadership is the only thing that can show and lead people out of. Because when you, the only way, let me use just an illustration. If you lead your people, you are trying to lead your people out of town when the place is flooded, and people are drowning. If you take them through the deep end of the distance and people can't swim, they will drown. But there are ways you can look and first of all see a pathway and maybe use things to create a passage for people to get out. Everybody will follow you and get out onto dry land. Similarly, leadership as a whole, transformational leadership like he described in the book, there are several other examples. Mandela led South Africa out of apartheid. There were probably 20 blacks to 1 white. If Mandela came back out as revenge, they could have wiped out the white people in South Africa, but it would not have healed anybody. But his own transformational leadership, now that he is not there, you can see what South Africa is going through. So it tells you that it's actually leadership that Nigeria needs, with a good constitution, a people's constitution, to get out of the current thing. Blaming the average citizen for the failure in Nigeria is actually putting the cart before the horse. I hope that addresses what you asked me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. CJ. I think it's important that I say a little about Dr. CJ. Dr. CJ is a Nigerian medical doctor in the diaspora. He is practicing in the United States of America. Dr. Adekunle too is in the United States of America. I deliberately chose this individual because of the contribution that they have made to the development of minds here back at home, support for advocacy that can help change the trajectory of leadership, and the fact that they continue to contribute to the society where they find themselves today. They have pride of the Nigerian nation, how they're where they are. And talking about the thought that Dr. CJ has added, it's important that I speak to the concept of disruptive leadership. And I will have to go back to the book. I wouldn't want to speak from my head. In the 10th chapter of the book, there are excerpts that I would like us to take a look at so that we can understand my call for disruptive leadership in the book. I am not too interested in the global, the disruptive order, which is going on. Trump is doing some disruption at the global level, which is to the benefit of his nation primarily. But I am looking for something that will be of benefit to humanity as a whole, and particularly the benefit of the continent of Africa, and in this context, my nation, Nigeria. In chapter 10, like I said, I begin the quote. Africa today occupies a tragic position in world affairs. It is a continent of abundance that lives with scarcity, a continent of youth trapped in unemployment, a continent that feeds the world with raw material, yet imports hunger, a continent spoken about endlessly, yet rarely listened to seriously. Africa is present in global statistics, but absent in global authorship. Now, these are the area where disruption is needed. And as men that carries the burden for Africa, we believe that beyond just speaking on this platform, you will partner with us to get this message across to every institution in America. And how do I mean? Like it was said in another chapter in the book, that Africa is not looking for a savior. Then it's important that we define what we're looking for. What is Africa looking for? Africa is looking for partnership. How can America partner with Nigeria to strengthen our agriculture? Not necessarily moving the products out of Nigeria, but partnership that can help feed the world, even from Africa. Partnership that can help build industry, that can make use of our raw materials and move finished goods, to wherever they are needed around the world. This is the partnership that African leaders are not thinking about. This is a partnership that African leaders have failed to see. And every time they go out there, they are going cap in hand, begging for help, outside of where help is needed. This is the partnership that leaders have failed to see, that is making us borrowing endlessly. Now, in that same chapter, there is an excerpt also we want us to look at, which further broaden the call for disruption of what the structure of leadership is presently in Africa. And I read, Africa is the last great global frontier, not because it lacks civilization, but because its civilization has been economically frozen. Africa possesses the world's youngest population, over 60% of the planet uncultivated arable land, vast reserves of lithium, cobalt, gold, oil, gas are rare earths, and a rapid urbanizing consumer base. Yet Africa remains trapped at the bottom of the global value chain. This pattern is consistent. Raw materials are exported, finished goods are imported, jobs are created abroad, and profits are repatriated. This is not accidental. It is the logic of a system designed to extract without empowering. End of quote. These are the area where disruption is needed, and we trust that that initiative will be taken by someone in the corner of the continent. Who that person is, I don't know. But I believe as this conversation is strengthened and deepened, every man, woman on the continent begin to rise for the disruption of the structure that has kept poverty domiciled on our continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Balaji. As we prepare to wrap up, before we take questions, I have a question for you, just before we go to the audience. Throughout your advocacy, you have consistently challenged Nigerian politicians on leadership. What is the central leadership lesson that this book would offer them?
The central leadership lesson this book offers is basically citizenship centered. You know, we talk about development and we're holding leaders responsible, but there is also a role carved out for citizens in the evolution of development. The central message is to make these citizens, particularly on our continent, to understand the responsible role, the dutiful role that we need to play if we're going to see our nation rise to fulfill purpose. That is the central message of the book.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for that. We'll be coming to our guest in the house. If you have a question that you would like Doctor to answer, or any of our other guests, Dr. CJ and Dr. Wale Adekola, please you can raise your hands so that we can take your questions. All right. While we're waiting for questions from our guest in the house, Dr. Wale Adekola, I have a question for you.
Okay.
All right, sir. I have been privileged to attend one of your leadership seminars or conference in Nigeria here, and I appreciate what you're doing in the space and how you are trying to shine a light on what leadership should be and what leadership isn't. What would be your overview of this book? How would you talk about this book? Is it a book that you would recommend? What are the core lessons that you would advise students, leaders, entrepreneurs, people who are professionals? What are the core lessons that you would charge them to take from this book?
Thank you very much for that question. I think it's it's an easy question actually, because the book it's highly comprehensive itself. You know, deals with all the concerns that we have all been talking about. You can, if you see what the book talks about, let me start with this. The book begins with a foundational assertion, right? That leadership is not merely a human invention, you know, or politics, business, or modern management. And like I mentioned, that according to the book, that it represents something that is rooted in a deeper moral and historical order. And that order is very critical. And that is the fundamental thing that we need to start thinking about in terms of ideology that we have embraced as a people. So the practical implication for me when it comes to business, when it comes to politics, when it comes to even family transformation, or any society, I'm very big on scalable leadership. I'm very big on scaling leadership across, you know, systems and making sure that the right structures are in place. And that's exactly what this book is really talking about. So the practical implication is that leadership is not it's not first about position or authority, but about alignment, like I said, responsibility and stewardship. And one of the recommendations I'm going to give to anyone that is listening to me now concerning this book, I'm going to make some statements here with some of the perspectives I'm seeing in this book. And I think the author also mentioned that a few minutes ago about Africa, about Nigeria, and about the global context. Here's the thing, and we know this, but it is important for us to paint it the way it is so that we can understand the foundational concept. It's a system. So when systems are built for the top, here's the challenge. Scarcity becomes structural. And what I just said now is very critical. In Nigeria, as an example, across parts of Africa and in many comparable contexts globally, what looks like scarcity actually is often the result of concentrated access, access systems, rather than absolute lack. It's not really absolute lack. Okay. And the same thing happens in business, same thing happens in families, same thing happens in every society, communities, non-profit organizations. You see it everywhere, including religious organizations. So we have to look at the whole system, right? For example, when institutions are designed primarily to serve a narrow leadership class, that will definitely lead to more challenges. What am I talking about here? Let me give you 3 examples. We can see it in business, in businesses as well. So for example, anyone who wants to start a business or grow a business, think about the concept documented and already, carefully published by the author. 3 things are very critical here. Resources flow upward before they flow outward. Let's look at our society. You will realize that that's one of our challenges. Opportunities becomes, gates kept rather than distributed. Okay? That's one of the causes of corruption. Okay? You see it everywhere in different societies. And if you look at the public systems gradually lose responsiveness to citizens because there is no transparency. So public trust is very low. So over time, scarcity is no longer just experience. It is a reproduced system by design. So why? Because we only have we have a narrow leadership class where the system is already designed to serve, not everyone. So for businesses, for any organization, I'm going to recommend this book seriously. Why? Let's think about what we want to become. If I ask anybody on this call now, or anybody who is going to listen to this later, the first thing I will ask is, what do you want to become? Now, another question that is very critical, once we answer that, what do I need to start becoming to get there? And that's very key. And that's why we have to start from self. Everything we're talking about in the society, you can't lead others if you are not leading yourself. I asked someone one day, there is a big difference between ambition and vision. Can we just pay close attention to the terminologies most of the politicians use? How many times have you heard the word vision? How many times do they use the word ambition? They are 2 different concepts, because ambition points towards self and vision points towards others. This book is focused on vision, strategic vision, humanity, society, community, and we cannot transform those ecosystems until it starts with us, because you cannot lead others until you first lead yourself. So leadership becomes maintenance of access. That's what we are realizing today, not expansion of capacity. The moment we have maintenance of access, and I know we understand what that means, that's what we are maintaining. To access people who are serving you, you know what it takes. For example, in the United States, if I want to see the mayor, all I have to do is to book an appointment and I will see him. I don't need to be talking to A, B, C, and D to see the mayor who is serving me. Does that make sense? And that is the challenge. We are maintaining access instead of expanding capacity. So in such system, leadership shifts subtly, from moves from stewardship to preservation, basically. So my final charge and my final encouragement, and I want to say a big thank you to Dr. Akinyemi once again, writing this book, because this is what we need. Actually, this is what we need. And we all need to become leadership practitioners. So we can't say one savior. Yes, do we need leaders at the top? Yes, we do. We need someone, we need people who are going to say, let's go. If I am not stealing, anyone around me will not be stealing. Can I say that again? If I am not stealing, me, anyone that I've appointed and hired, they won't be stealing in my company. But if they know that I'm a thief myself, that I'm, they know that they can talk to me and, we can figure things out. So they will also create that kind of system for themselves too, because they know that I cannot hold them accountable because I'm a partaker. So let's start thinking about the way the author has put it, creating leadership practitioners in our society. That's what this book is all about. Making sure this book gets to citizens, making sure this book gets to people who needs to read this book. Because the savior mentality, even though, yes, we need someone who's going to paint the picture. If you study the history of Dubai, we can see that leaders emerge and then brought people together to increase capacity, to expand capacity. So the savior mentality definitely, survives because systems reward centralization. That's one of our challenges. So my encouragement is, whether you're in business, whether you are, whatever industry where you belong, let's focus on producing leadership practitioners, people who are going to think about how to become responsible, focusing on true value system, and then scaling their own personal leadership before they start pointing at others. Because the question is, before you point at others, what are you becoming? That's the question. Are you scaling yours? Are you becoming better? Are you becoming a better example? Are you a prototype of what we're talking about? We have to become, so that we can continue to shape our ecosystems, just like the author has put it. Thank you very much. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Thank you. My key takeaway is that we all need to become leadership practitioners. So it's not just for the people in power, but also for us as citizens to practice being a good leader, being a prototype every day. Okay, so I want to appreciate the presence of Pastor Lori from the US, and we'll be taking your comments now, ma'am. Pastor Lori, please, you can unmute your mic and let's hear from you. Thank you very much. We can't hear you yet.
Pastor Lori, thank you for being a part of this. Can you please unmute your mic so we can hear you? Dr. Lori, can you please increase the volume of your... Increase the volume? Let's see if the volume is the issue. We're still not hearing you. Maybe we should come back to Pastor Lori. We would just love to take your comment, your observation, whatever it is. And I do assure you that we would take it before we go. But managing our time, can we take the next person?
Okay, so we have Fashwakwe Abolanle. You can unmute your mic and let's hear from you, your comments, your questions.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I hope I'm audible. Sorry, you can't see my background. I'm at work now. Good evening, all.
Good evening, sir.
Quite a nice. Am I being heard? I don't know.
Yes,
Yes.
sir,
No.
we can hear you.
Okay. It's a wonderful thing to be part of this program. I've learned a lot in just these few minutes. And something that is on my mind is let me put it this way. Every scientist need a lab, and every book that is written need a school of thought and maybe a classroom. And I am wondering where we should center the disbursement of this great knowledge that is packed together for us in this generation. Because one thing that is on my mind that if we start from the top, definitely we're going to miss a lot. Like it has been written in the book that leadership is divine, and then it's an alignment. And the thought that came to my mind was that when God, who is the pioneer of all this we are talking about, started from the garden, created the garden, took the man into the place, and then start to deal with them. So I think this book should primarily focus on family, how to get it down to every family before now directing it to the whole community or nation at large. Like one of the speakers had rightly said, that it's something that should begin from an individual. Like, let me use his statement, if I don't steal, then no other person around me will steal. So I think that this book should be, the focus should be to the family unit. Of course, that is the nucleus of the nation and the populace at large. So that's my concern, not to begin to take this to where people will just see it, appreciate it, and dump it, but take it to the place where people will start learning about leadership. And then the
Thank you.
result will be
Thank you so much, Pastor Bola Fashu, for being part of this. We appreciate you as always. Like you said it's important that we take the concept, to the family. And one of the things that this book spoke about is the training of Donald Trump for leadership from the family unit. And that can be seen in chapter 4. Chapter 4 talks about the preparation of the man for the presidency. He didn't become a leader when he became the president. The leadership was already formed from the family, his interaction with his father, instruction from his father, schools he went to, and all of that. And I'd like to take a quote from the 4th chapter. He said, to understand Donald Trump, one must resist the temptation to begin with the presidency. Trump, the president, cannot be understood without Trump, the boy. Trump, the disruptor, cannot be grasped without Trump, the son. Trump, the global figure, cannot be interpreted without Trump, the young man, navigating identity issue, authority, ambition, and expectation. By and large, the family unit is the incubator for leadership. Every father, every mother must see this. Bring that to bear on our local level. Every leader you see today are only reflecting what their past has been. So when we think in line with the future, we must know that responsibility is laid on us as parents to prepare our children for their place in leadership. Thank you very much. I think we can go back to Pastor Laurie. Pastor Laurie, I guess we have it all good with your mic now. I wouldn't want this meeting closed without taking your contribution. Pastor Laurie.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We can hear you well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. First of all, let me congratulate you on this endeavor. I have had the privilege of meeting you and having conversation with you about these very topics. And so one of my comments about this book would be global relations. We in America, as I've been listening here, we have the unique ability to be able to approach our local government. My husband and I just had a meeting with our local mayor about our concerns within our city. And as the previous speaker was talking about those relations, how important it is to develop those relationships locally as well as globally. And so I think what you have done is create a beautiful atmosphere and a template that we can use globally for both international relations as far as these topics go, but also to unite, as I was talking with you prior, two nations that have fantastic leadership, that have huge abilities. But we also need to close that gap in communications as far as our political and our spiritual relationships. So I would like to hear further comment from you concerning those subjects.
Thank you very much, Laurie. Good that you are on this call. Now, the basic thing we need to understand is the fact that leadership is not a local concept. Leadership is a global concept. And from the experience of Dr. Wale Adekola and your experience and that of your husband, your access to your mayor, we call them local government chairman here. You just had a meeting with your mayor, and Pastor Adekola did said if he wants to meet his mayor, it's not an issue. It's just a matter of booking appointment. In this part of the world, it is not like that. And it's important that those of us who are enlightened bring to bear the need to compare leadership structure in our climb to what it is globally. That is why we are setting the global template, and that is why we want Nigerians to learn from America, Americans to learn from Nigeria. You know, there are lessons that the world can learn from Africa, and there are lessons that Africa need to learn from the rest of the world. And for example, how do we remove the mentality that idolizes leadership and the mentality that goes to leadership begging? You know, every time somebody gets into the office, for example, somebody have just been elected a governor, and then people are listing their private needs, and that can run into millions. And if everybody is doing that, how would the man be able to serve the people if he has to start handing out? And so it's important that we understand that when people are there, they are there for the office. Whatever personal relationship they have with individuals may have to become secondary. Primarily, they are there to serve the people, and the people, we must encourage them to serve. So building relationship with our leaders is important, but those relationships must be kept business-like for the purpose for which they're elected to serve the people, and nothing more. I hope I answer your question.
You did, sir. I appreciate it so much. I look forward to more interactions as we continue to work together toward those goals. Thank you.
Definitely, Laurie, it will be my pleasure to work with you. You are one very brilliant mind that I've interacted with, and I believe that we'll take it forward. Thank you.
All right. We have one more person, and this will be our last contribution that we'll be taking for tonight because our time is fast spent. Abimbola Olawore. Abimbola Olawore, you can unmute your mic and share your thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Akemi. Thank you to facilitators. Please pardon me for my background. I'm in the process of something. I have to just step into the presentation. So, sir, I wanted to ask specifically, could you please highlight for us from the book, at what point will we begin to understand as Nigerians that what we hear and what we do is directly connected to what is happening globally? You have portrayed for us the impact of Donald Trump as a global leadership code, and you had mentioned to us that you have prior concern for your country, Nigeria. As a Nigerian, could you please just clarify from the book? Because you see, sometimes we feel powerless that what we are and what we do may not reflect in the country, talk less on the global stage. But you are, you are convincing us, you are letting us know, you are emphasizing for us that we matter. But how do we matter? At what point are our little actions in the family, in our churches, in our communities and business, at what point does it begin to reflect as important to other people in other portions of the world and on a national scale? How will we know that what we're doing is important, and how do we stay engaged doing it regardless of challenges? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Pastor Bimbo Olawore. We're going to begin to matter at the point where we begin to take ourselves serious. As it is now, the reason we're calling for disruption is because there is an elite capture of the space of politics and of leadership, particularly in a democracy. A democracy is defined as the government of the people, by the people, for the people. But you know, me and you know that in reality is not what our experience is. So there's a need for us to develop a citizen consciousness in our people, that we make them know who they are and stand for what they should deserve from their government, and be dutiful about what they should contribute to the government. Now, I know that going forward, we're going to be hitting the space of leadership with concept that a lot of people can't but be part of. We're going to start what I call citizen masterclass, very soon. And we will expect that people will sign up for it, so that Nigerians begin to know what their rights are and what is expected of them. Once that information is in the public domain, once that information is rooted in the mind of the individual Nigerian, you will see that the game will change. The reason why crumbs is being offered to the people for loaves is because the people don't even know that the loaves is theirs. And so when you give them crumbs, they say thank you and hail you, Babasa and all of that. But when the people know that the bread is there and theirs, and you only have the privilege of holding the bread in trust and holding the knife in trust, and to slice out the bread according to portion that should come to individual and sector, all of these shenanigans we stop. I don't know if I respond to you adequately, but if you want clarity, I will be pleased to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very, very helpful. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. As we begin to wrap up, it is my pleasure to announce that the ebook Global Leadership Code, Donald J. Trump as a Case Study, is live and available. All you have to do is click the link to purchase your copy of the ebook, and the hardcover would be available and will be launched on the author's birthday, which is about a month from now. That will be happening on the 5th of August. So if you want to purchase the hardcover, that's the physical copy of the book, you would have to wait till next month to do that. But the ebook, the soft copy, is available on Stella. The link for purchase would be placed in the chat box so that you can get your copies right away. Thank you so much for joining in. We had over 28 people join us on Zoom. We had over 2,000 people join us on X, and we had over 50 people join us on TikTok. So please, thank you for joining in. But the conversation does not end here. It ends with you getting a copy of the book and reading it and applying those lessons. One thing Dr. Wale said today that stayed with me is that we should all be leadership practitioners. So scalable leadership, in his words, is not just for the people in power, it's not just for people in position, it is for everyone, because it's not enough that we are pointing faults at the people in power when we ourselves, if given the same platform, would not do anything different. So please, please, please get your copy of the book, and let's keep the conversation going on social media. You can reach out to the author on X. You can ask him questions on X. You can reach out to him on Instagram. You can also reach out, send an email to us, masterbuildercommunications@gmail.com. Speaking engagements. If you want to have a one-on-one session with the author, we'll be pleased to hear from you and would be happy to respond to you. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Any parting words, sir?
Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. I want to say a big thank you to my crowd on X. You guys have been awesome. I acknowledge the 1 million people who came into the space 2 days ago to share their thoughts on the article written about NDC, Nigerian Democratic Congress. And is it Nigerian or National Democratic Congress? And I must tell you that we're getting feedback from the leadership of that party, and that is what advocacy is all about. Advocacy should never be partisan, and we should take on institutions and call them out until the right thing is done, whether it is party A or party B, whatever the party, it is about serving the people. I want to appreciate my brother, Dr. CJ from the US, for making our time to be part of this. We love you. We're going to be engaging to see this nation work. Thank you, Dr. Wale Adekola. I think you have to be part of our Citizen Masterclass and some of the other things that we're doing. But I assure you that we are your ambassador at home. Anytime you want to come to organize leadership training session, we will be your steward. And to everyone, thank you for making our time. To everyone, thank you for making our time. And we'll look forward to regularly seeing you when we set up platforms such as this. God bless you. Remember, pick up your copy of the book, share with friends, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bless
It was
you.
a pleasure doing this with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have you muted the mic?